Don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I'm just going to say it, and I hope I'm not, you know, being considered to be offensive when I say this kind of thing. And please do not assume that I'm suggesting some variety of overarching ideology to prevent your spiritual freedom whatsoever if you're in the pagan movement or if you're in the Wiccan movement. As I say, these things could be like really good carriers of like good things in the world moving into the future, but it is a question of like cultural change from like the here and now onwards, so that you can really be, you know, a proper, good, wholesome, and effective spirituality. Okay. Contrary to what was done by the Council of American Witches, which was to try and create those 13 points or whatever it was that would define what a witch is. Instead of maybe defining what a witch is in that way, why don't you just think about things differently? All right, you're supposed to be creating a genuine, powerful religious community. All right. So therefore, yes, you do need safeguarding, and you do need to have conversations about morality and ethics and how people treat other people, and how understanding is built within the organizations. All right. So maybe a person can become a neo-pagan the moment they themselves say it. But the moment they themselves say it, then surely that means that they're taking on board a certain role. Okay. Once you become a third degree Wiccan, I understand, then you're in a position of religious authority within your community to be able to run essentially a witchcraft group, which is, you know, great, very interesting, wonderful. But at what point those 3 degrees of initiation is there a very in depth, very challenging safeguarding course? All right, that is something which needs to be done. And I think that that needs to be a cultural thing brought into Wicca and also brought into other forms of neo-paganism, so that there can be a better qualities of understanding of treatments of vulnerable people. And I want you to be really, really clear cut here that a lot of people who are very damaged and very injured, either spiritually because of bad experiences in religion or just through other forms of trauma, maybe they come from a broken home, maybe I don't know, maybe their mother ended up in a mental home. You know, there's all kinds of things which could have happened to someone, which can make them need comfort, need reassurance, and also to need to have a mother and father figure, but essentially in heaven. You know, the deity concepts of Wicca is the male and the female, the mother and the father, looking after you, essentially. So, taking that into account, surely there must be an evolution of culture in order to bring about this safety for people who are within witchcraft, within paganism, and within, I would even say, the more magical and more occultic aspects of paganism. Now, it's obviously a very complicated debate, and it's very, very difficult to try and make these kind of changes occur in a society. I'm not someone who identifies specifically as a neo-pagan. All right, I'm someone who has some practices which overlap with what is done in paganism. But these are my own practices which are appropriate for myself as an individual practitioner, as a person who is interested in magic, religion, spirituality, and just seeing everything as somehow connected. I mean, I don't sense that there is anything different. All right, I just don't sense the actual specific differences. I think that the specific differences between groups are often magnified in people's minds and said, this is the definition of what I am, this is the definition of what you are, and that also creates some varieties of extra animosity. All right, when essentially, if there is animosity between, let's say, Christianity and paganism, that animosity could be eased as a result of the pagans taking some very real control over how they are communicating and how they are expressing themselves. I think that would be quite a positive thing. All right, this ongoing subjects of the ethics of spirituality and conversation and communication, and also how one puts into context the subjects of magic. This needs really to be addressed. I mean, as a culture, you yourself, you as an individual within your culture, you are someone who is very proud of what you are. You are proud of the concept of what you are. You are proud of the sense that you feel different to the other. These are okay things, but there's also, but it's kind of like a set of scales. It's kind of like a spectrum. You know, you can push it too far one way or too far the other way, and then you end up with an unbalanced interpretation, which, if paganism is about achieving balance, would not necessarily help. The magnification of the mind on particular subjects and particular concepts needs to be challenged by the practitioner themselves. And they need to be brought into an understanding of how they are magnifying things correctly or incorrectly, and therefore to develop that right kind of like more intuitive understanding, emotional understanding of right versus wrong within communication and ideas and understanding. So it's just something else to think about. I mean, there are organizations such as Talking Stick and Pagan Link and Pagan Federation in the UK, of which I'm not a part of. I think that there's issues in terms of the way in which they are at the moment, but this also can change. Much of the discussion and debate needs to be more to do with what you are, not as practitioners, but as people within a very complicated political world. And the person is political, definitely. Alright, and a religious person is intensely political. So where is this culture going to go? Maybe there could even be some variety of like understanding for people within my own trade. I'm a professional tarot reader. I've been doing it now for over 18 years. Okay, full-time professional. When I get customers who have actually been hurt by other readers, and I have to help set them straight. And it's the words that those readers have used which has caused a lot of the problems. So within everything, which is New Age, occult, pagan, spiritual healing, Reiki, and all the rest of that, ethical considerations must be to the forefront. And maybe these organizations, these as it were the churches of paganism, which is like, Talking Stick and Pagan Link, Pagan Federation, maybe they could actually be part of the discussion as to how to actually bring an ethical understanding into the people within their own community. And if you were to do that, I think that would make you politically a much more stable group of people, a much more powerful political group of people, and would have much more effects in the outer world when you've actually got some codified ethics and moralities in terms of communication. Now, remember, I've been mucking around with all this stuff since I was tiny. I was buying books with my benefits money when I was in my teenage years, and it's all to do with this simple subject. Well, this specific subject of supernaturalism, magic, spiritual healing, and so on and so forth. And in the early days, when I was looking at these books, they would say things like "it works" or spells that work on the cover. And there came a time in history when that got removed because it was considered to be wrong. Alright, and in my time as a tarot reader, there was a change internationally for psychic websites and psychic phone lines to have a change to say for entertainment purposes only. Both of these things I support wholeheartedly, because you need to provide a space where people can think ethically about what it is that is being said to them, and also for those who are saying things, they need to have some variety of ethicality, alright, behind them. Which is of course why in the UK it is illegal to do a reading based upon pregnancy, medical matters, childbirth, and certain things which only key special medical professionals should actually be looking at. Because you should be going to a special medical professional and not a tarot reader if you think you're pregnant. Okay? That's just the way it should be. And so I'm under law to tell people if they ask me about pregnancy or paternity and that sort of stuff, no, I can't answer this. I'm not allowed to. It's again, there's ethical and moral considerations as well as legal reasons. All right, ethical and moral considerations as well as legal reasons. All right, there's nothing legally stopping you from saying magic works. There is nothing legally there to stop you from saying all kinds of things, because this is a spiritual space, and therefore you got a certain quantity of freedom. But the fact there's nothing in law to prevent you from doing that doesn't mean to say that there's nothing in ethics, morality, and appropriateness, as well as thinking of others and having care and compassion for others. That's why safeguarding is necessary. That's why going on safeguarding courses is necessary. And that's why being educated about all of the various forms of damage which is happening in other people, so that you can actually be there to be the healer and teacher of all things, which you witches say you are. You could actually be in that role. You could actually properly be in that role. And this can only happen if there is a very, very strong ethical debate about what is said and what is done and how it's practiced, and how you explain these things. Ethics and morality has to be a very, very key consideration within the walls of your faith. Okay? In order to make you a stronger group, so that those outside of the walls of your faith can understand that there are some particular key principles under which you are operating. All right? It's not a question of the definition of a witch in accordance with the Council of American Witches. No. That defining yourself as a witch could in fact be a thing which you do yourself. All right, maybe there's some more key definitions as to what a Wiccan is, and some more key definitions as to what a practitioner of the Northern tradition is, or more key definitions as to what a chaos magician is, or whatever, depending upon where you're coming from and your denomination and all that kind of stuff. I think that thing should be more fluid. All right, I think that should be a bit more fluid, more up to the individual to, as they carry on in their own personal growth, to change their mind and change their denomination and so on and so forth. But I don't think it is worthwhile if you're changing from one, let's say you're a Thelemite 1 year, and then after a while you do a bit of Wicca, then after a while you're a Chaos Magician, and so on and so forth. Fine, okay, and enjoy that journey. That should be great. But what ethics are you working underneath? What ethics are you working on, and what ethics are you considering is the best way of being, communicating, and is true, real, in-depth thought on this subject. Now, the things which I've experienced, which would be regarded as being paranormal or supernatural or spiritual or whatever, those things happened to me. They happened, right? That's fact. Therefore, there's something going on there which is obviously real. All right. The other aspect of your ethicality should be how to explain, in a manner which is common to all, how to bring about the anomalous experience. I don't think it's asking too much to say that people who are religious and say that they are religious and they're following a religion should have some variety of code of conduct, code of ethics, code of communication. I should not be the one to tell you what it is. You know full well what I've been talking about here. For 17 years on this channel, alright? 16, 17 years, whatever it is. Alright? There's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of videos in my history. And the main train of thought is to say that it is wrong to say magic works. It's a very glib expression. It's very simple, and it's not really put into efficient context. All right, it's not a good expression. If that phrase can be removed from the books in the New Age shop, if that phrase can be removed, right, from the psychic lines, when you're in a religion which should be higher than those things, all right, higher in morality, higher in compassion, higher in empathy, higher in understanding, higher in terms of how you deliver, right? Then it would make more sense that you need to raise yourself even above the level of those books and above the level of the psychic lines, so that you are taken seriously as a political and religious group in the real world. Does this start to make sense to you? All right? I'm coming to you from the point of view of wanting you people to be doing an awful lot better, for you to be able to be a good religious community, for you to be able to be a good, powerful political force. Let's say the environmental aspects, all right, which is part and parcel of the pagan identity. This is good. We need people to protest about roads being built and to protect woodlands, and we need this, all right? This it's even worse out there now than it was in the 80s, all right? It's worse. It's worse out there. Having this political group of people who are prepared to do these things and go on marches and go on demonstrations, all right? This is like an amazing thing. But if you are, let's say, united with a certain level of ethicality, then you can possibly deliver with much greater ease what you need to in order to create change. All right? It will be making the entire spiritual religious community of the pagan movement much more able to do these things. It will create not necessarily unity in terms of identity or unity in terms of spiritual ideology, but unity in terms of how you think, not how you believe. Your theological beliefs, that's up to you, your ethics and your own personal conscience, which I hope will carry on growing. But it's more a question of what you think is appropriate. There's what you believe spiritually, then there's what you think is appropriate, and how that can grow with you. So you get more knowledge and understanding, and you can introspect, and in your meditations even start to see how ethics in communication, ethics in terms of explaining yourself, ethics in terms of how you treat younger people when they come into your faith. And all young people, they're struggling with life issues, every single one of them. And because of that, you're in a position of care. You're essentially the loco parentis of a lot of these young men and women who suddenly turn up on your door, at your meeting and say, "Oh, I'm trying to work things out for me, I don't even know what to do." Or, they could have some kind of neurotic problem, they could have an autism problem, they could have some very serious damage, which, would take an awful lot of work with a counseling therapist or indeed a psychiatrist to try and sort out. This is the kind of people who just come into religion, any religion. All right, people need help and support and guidance and love, and the right kinds of love to steer them in the right way comes from how their thoughts are directed, their energy is directed, their character is directed, so that there can be very real positive thoughts here. No, I'm not telling you that you need to read the Bible and do the 10 Commandments or anything like that. No. I'm suggesting that you need to have these ethical debates about conversation, communication, and what it means to be you. As the magician, the occultist, the chaos magician, the witch, the neo-pagan, the spiritual but not religious person. There's a lot going on there. All right? Now, do you feel that as a political group, all right, neo-pagans, within all the whole spectrum of what it means to be a neo-pagan, okay? That you want more political power and more recognition. All right? Do you want to have more acceptance within society? Do you want to be considered to be, a good go-to spirituality and faith? Right? Do you want people to think, okay, instead of you having to say to someone, "Well, this is a religion, to actually say, yeah, we are doing religion. This is a genuine religion and faith. We get, our contemplations from here. We use these different text sources. We do this, that, and the other. We have a few practices. In many ways, we're similar to everyone else. We just got a few more things, some of which came out of various different schools of thought. And we're doing this experimentally and spiritually as part of our acknowledgement and worship of higher powers. I mean, that kind of communication would be a little bit easier for people to swallow, and it would be a better explanation. And when it comes to magic, you're opening up a whopping great can of worms there. I mean, I'm a whopping great can of worms. And again, the whole subject of what magic is or what magic isn't is very, very complicated. I mean, I knew this guy who had a heart problem, and he had a temple built on his land. He was like half an acre, built a house with some rooms he could rent out, and he had a temple, a pagan temple, built basically a brick shed with beautiful stars painted on the ceiling so to help you to open up, and places for the candles and the quarters. It's a very, very beautiful spiritual space. Wonderful. And he went into that in meditation for long periods of time, and he healed his heart that way. And the doctor said that they couldn't explain how comes the heart got healed. So, but the problem was, he turned around to me and says, it works. He didn't go in to say, I'm associating this exercise with the healing of my heart over a period of a few months. I mean, the organ of the heart. We're not talking allegorical as a result of breakup of relationship. We're talking about the physical heart organ. Boom, boom, boom. That thing. All right. So I would communicate that in terms of, if I was him and if I'd gone through that, well, I've had this incredible healing of my heart, and I believe it was due to the fact that I was doing some particular exercises. I was doing meditation. I placed my hand on my heart, delivering spiritual healing energy there. I was talking to it. I took a certain period of time to do it. I did it in these states of mind, and something which appears to be a connective result seems to have occurred. Now, because why would I do that? Because you could have somebody else, all right, who latches onto that and thinks, I've got a heart problem too, maybe if I do that it'll work for me, and it might not. And they might not get the right treatment, or might not get the right medication that they need to save their heart, because for them it did not work. Because, I don't know, they couldn't get into the right state of mind, they didn't have the right concentration, there was something else wrong with the heart. You know, you can't just turn around and say, it works! No, you can't. That is pure sickness, actually. Because that which is what happened to him would not necessarily happen to somebody else. You could therefore not say it works, because that is like saying it's a prescription, I'm an expert, this is what I did, you do precisely the same as this particular exercise and you will get precisely the same result because it works. Finito, full stop, the end. No. You must not be allowed to communicate like that, because of the lack of ethicality that goes along with that communication. Especially if you're talking about a heart disease. Good God! What are you thinking? Better guidance should be given. I think, very much so, that the full spectrum of the alternative health world needs to be given to everybody. This is why I'm trying to write this book. I've taken a break of a few months from it because it's been too much. Then basically the first part of it is a list of all the forms of alternative health out there, and some of the things I've experienced on the way with it. And the second part is going to be the aspect which is a combination between mediumship, ESP, psychic reading, and that kind of thing. Alright? And to try and have this explained clear and properly. Because you're not doing it yet. And it shouldn't really be up to me to try and mop up the damage done by you people. It should be up to you to create the ethics and morality under which all people who choose freely the title of neo-pagan should essentially understand. And this is essentially what needs... This is probably the biggest, most important cultural change you could create. And it's also the place whereby you could come out of the shadows. Alright? And you'll no longer be sort of like these sort of like dodgy people in the background doing their secret craft. No. It's not a secret craft. Anyway, you can get books on meditation and spiritual healing everywhere. Alright? It's not a secret craft anymore. You can just go onto Google and you can find all kinds of stuff there. Tons of stuff here on YouTube. I mean, there's plenty of information out there, but that information needs to be expressed well in a structured manner which is ethical and appropriate and is explained specifically, because the quantity of damage that there is in people when they come into religion, and people come into faith for healing, all right, for community, to deal with loneliness issues, to help get over terrible breakups or divorces or bereavements. Okay, very, very serious stuff. And religion itself is very serious and is very dangerous and is very difficult if done wrong. All right? And maybe, if you think that there is some kind of like hidden intention behind why you're doing your magic or your witchcraft or whatever, maybe you need to work on why that is there and what that is, and maybe you need to deal with it through other therapeutic means so it's not there. So that when you tell people in a well-adjusted, clear-minded, intelligent way about witchcraft, magic, spiritual healing, occultism, divination, everything, you can do so from a straight, shooting from the hip, clear and true, 100% honest way. And I mean 100% honest way. Alright? It is dishonest to say magic works. Alright? And if you want to